So Canon has just announced the R6 III, and this is a massive update. We have a new sensor, we have insane 40 frame per second frame rates, video features that just blow away some of the best video cameras on the market, which is crazy because the R6 II was already one of the best hybrid mirrorless cameras on the market. And now this is just better. I've had a couple days to kind of go over this camera, but it just arrived this morning. So we had a couple of shoots this morning with it, but a whole lot more is going to be coming up soon over the next couple of days and weeks with this. So definitely stay tuned, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Whole bunch of tests and a full review coming out on this one, as well as some tutorial videos. So if you really want to get to know it, we're going to do it here. But before we get into this camera, I do want to talk about the R6 II a little bit because I've had this camera since 2022. And it's honestly been everything that I need in a camera. And even though I personally also have the R5 II, which is technically the higher end body, I like this a lot. And my wife, Sally, who's primarily a wedding and portrait photographer, also uses the R6 II as her main camera, again, even though she has access to the R5 II. And the reason is simple, like this has just been the perfect jack of all trades, everything camera. And what I want to know is if moving for these upgrades on the R6 III also comes with some of those trade-offs that we've seen in other cameras. And to spoil the conclusion a bit early, if you're a videographer, this camera is just absolutely amazing. So the hardware on the R6 III is probably going to be the most minor of all of the upgrades. It looks identical, it feels identical, and that's mostly a good thing. Like I didn't have any complaints with the R6 II, so while there might have been like a couple wish list items that I was kind of hoping would make it to the R6 III, those didn't, and the camera is still very good. So the hardware on this is just about perfect. And the biggest change that we have is actually with the cards, and it might come with a trade-off. So before we had dual SD card slots, and now we're getting one SD card slot and one CF Express. I would say the main reason for this is probably going to be for video, which we'll get to in a second. And I'll also just say that like I prefer SD cards whenever possible because they're cheap. You can find them anywhere, and pretty much every computer, most computers seem to have SD card slots. So you don't need a separate reader in order to actually just put this in your computer and upload your files. That said, CF Express cards are insanely fast, they are more durable, and actually way cheaper than high-speed SD cards. So if you need faster cards, which the R6 III does, having a CF Express card is really the must-have and is going to be worth the upgrade. The other kind of trade-off is going to be the battery, which gets upgraded to the latest LPE6P, which is the same as the R5 II, and the capacities between the batteries are going to be the same, but this one now has higher voltage, which is going to be important. So these are technically backwards compatible, so you can use these with your older cameras, but if you want to be able to use like the older Canon batteries from like the R6 and R6 II or things like that with this new R6 III, you technically can, but they're going to come with some limitations. Now, when I tested this with the R5 II, almost all the limitations with the battery are going to be with video. So if you're a photographer, you should be able to use older Canon batteries without an issue on the newer camera, but if you're shooting video at all, you're definitely going to need to upgrade to these newer batteries. So again, the newer batteries are enabling new features, but a little bit of a trade-off. If you have a bunch of old ones, we're going to have to get some new ones on this, which I do because I have a ton of these old batteries, and now I need some new ones. Now, most of the other upgrades for this camera are things that we've seen in the R5 II, and the brand new C50, which is Canon's newest cinema camera, and it is bringing some absolutely massive video features to this one. Even though this was still great for video, this is just on an entirely new level, and it's getting a new sensor. So let's break it down. So this is now a 32.5 megapixel full frame backside illuminated sensor. It is capable of 12 frames per second with mechanical shutter. I'm glad they still kept the mechanical shutter. And it's 40 frames per second in electronic shutter, which is just crazy fast for a camera like this. Now just keep in mind, like this is not a stacked CMOS sensor like the R5 II, which is expected given the price of this camera. But just keep in mind that while this does seem to have some pretty fast read speeds compared to the competition, you can still see some rolling shutter and banding in electronic shutter in some situations. But again, like this is the same thing with every camera at this price range, and Canon is still giving us some of the fastest mechanical speeds, and I think the fastest electronic shutter speeds for this price range, especially if you compare this to like the Sony a7 IV, which tops out at 10 frames per second no matter what mode you're in. Now the R6 II is only 24 megapixels, so moving over to 32 is a pretty massive upgrade, and obviously that means larger file sizes. So that's where the CF Express card is really going to be the biggest upgrade here. And with full resolution, like the full 32 megapixels at 40 frames per second in RAW, you're actually getting 150 images on the R6 III before filling up the buffer, which is more like double what you were getting on the R6 II, despite this having less resolution on the sensor. You're also going to get pre-recording, so you can set the camera to actually record half a second before you actually hit the shutter. So up to 20 images in that mode, which is going to be absolutely amazing if you are a sports and wildlife photographer especially. And we also get a bunch of new autofocus modes from the R5 II and the R1, including the ability to register people's faces as an autofocus priority mode, which basically means that you take a picture of the subject, and then if a camera sees that subject in the frame, it will prioritize them for autofocus. And I tested this on the R1 and it worked amazingly well, and this is going to be awesome for again, especially sports and even wedding photographers on this one. Now, keep in mind that when you typically move up in resolution to higher megapixels, that doesn't mean better quality in low light. In fact, it means worse quality in low light if everything else stayed the same. So that's going to be something that I'm going to have to test. But we have kind of a hint of what's going to happen, because Canon has changed the maximum ISO in this camera from 100,000 on the R6 II to 64,000 on the R6 III. So that's probably a sign we're going to be dealing with maybe like a third of a stop in worse performance in super low light, which is going to be typical for cameras that are increasing resolution. But if you don't need the extra resolution, it means that the R6 II might be slightly better in those low light areas. Now, I'll save the image quality test for the full review, but my wife Sally had the chance to shoot some portraits with it. I was able to shoot a few cars, and the images from this look amazing. Like, we're still waiting on RAW support, so these are just JPEG files, but I'm impressed so far. Canon colors are always stunning. We have more detail now with a 32 megapixel sensor, and these images were actually taken with the new 45mm 1.2, which is Canon also announced that today, and it's a $500 lens, not the normal $2,000 lens that we would be shooting with. And this is now for sure my favorite lens under $500, because yeah, these images look insane. Now, video is going to be where everything gets freaking crazy. So if you're like me, this is going to read more like a dream camera, video camera spec list than a sub $3,000 hybrid photo video camera. But we have 7K video recording. We have open gate recording on a camera like this. We have DCI options. We have raw video recording. We also get oversampled video in 4K up to 60 frames per second using the entire full frame sensor. There's no crop in that. You have full 7K oversampling in 30 frames per second or less. You have 4K video recording up to 120 frames per second with audio, by the way. This is going to be using the SNF recording, which I think stands for slow and fast. And it basically just means that the footage is going to be already slowed down when you get it to your computer. You also get 180 frames per second at up to 2K resolution for that, which is amazing because we never had 4K 120 in this camera right here. Color options for this: you're going to have 12-bit Canon RAW, you're going to have RAW Light as an option, you're going to have ProRes RAW via HDMI, which is now a full-size HDMI port. So thanks, Canon, for that. They probably should have had it a little bit earlier, but thank you. We now have it. We have 10-bit video in log 2. We have log 3. We have HLG. We have PQ recording. We have a high intra. We have a standard intra, a light intra, along with long op as video options, and a light long op if you want even lighter bitrate options on this camera. This is a video powerhouse camera built into a stills camera, and as someone who always has to shoot both photos and videos, I am stoked for this camera. Like, this has the potential to be absolutely amazing. This also has the potential to be an overheating camera because it does not have active cooling, and those are some pretty crazy video specs. So I'm going to test this camera. We'll have to see how it manages all of that heat. But again, Canon did launch the C50 last month with active cooling and the same sensor and even more video specs than this. So if you need that more dedicated video camera for reliable long recordings, like multi-hour long video recordings, and this camera can't manage that, at least Canon now has the option, and that makes it a whole lot more palatable. But the R6 III is also getting like a tally lamp. It has electronic levels, it has waveforms, false colors, and a bunch of new features tailored for video. So I will be doing a full video breakdown with this camera specifically. I have it now, so stay tuned. This is not going to be far off because I am really curious at just how good of a video camera this is going to be. I'm stoked for it. And this also has both RAW and MP4 options in 7K open gate, so you do have some flexibility there, but this is a lot of formats, so I really want to dive in and see what limitations there are with all of them. Obviously, in all of these formats, or a lot of them, are going to require a CF Express card. So for those situations, you can use the SD card to record a 1080p proxy file, since we don't have like a dual CF Express card slot in there. So a few other awesome features that are going to be available with this camera. We have the ability to use the same battery grip as the R6 III. The flash accessory port right here is also a multi-function hot shoe, so it can accept digital audio without cables from Canon's shotgun microphone. And IBIS is now rated to up to 8 stops, which is especially good because Canon has a ton of lenses with image stabilization. So if you're using the R6 III with one of those lenses, it will be just insanely stable. Speaking of lenses, actually, this is the 45mm 1.2, which was announced today. So stay tuned. There's going to be a video on that one as well. But let me know if there's anything I didn't cover that you want to see in the full review. Again, I'll be testing this camera like crazy over the next couple of days with some insane cars as well. So hit notifications on so you don't miss anything. I'm posting BTS to Instagram at Learning Cameras, so definitely hit me up there with any questions as well. All the BTS is going to be over there. Hope you guys are doing amazing. I am stoked for this, and I'll catch you in the next one.